Okay, so this is April 4th. Well, no, not April 4th, April 17th. And I want to talk to you a little bit about power creep. Now, anyone who's kind of played role-playing games for a while, or played video games, understands what the nature of power creep is. It's that the new thing is added, and it's more powerful than what you previously had, and so things, why have the old thing when you can have the new thing? And to me, this is most obvious in the Palladium Rifts sequence of video role-playing games, in which each of the new supplements that came out was more potent than the previous one. That why would you want to have gun A from the original game when you can have gun B, which is much better? The technology that they introduced was not a balance against the previous stuff. It was just buy this stuff because you can get something that's better. Now, people may disagree with me on that, but I think that if you look at the numbers, that the later mechs compared were much better than the previous mechs and weapons and armor and such like that. The word power creep actually came up from a video I watched by the Dice Tower. A guy was talking about expansions for a particular card game, and it reminded me of this idea of power creep, that ideally, this is one of the advantages of a game system like GURPS or Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 or Mekton, that inherent as part of the rules, that has an inherent rule set that avoids power creep within a particular tech level, you might say. Now, that's not to say that bows and arrows are just as good as guns. They're from different tech levels, and so that you don't base something off of the ruling of this is better simply because it's in the newer edition. You say this is better because we're revealing technology that wasn't available in the previous edition, or at higher tech levels you can get better stuff. And ideally, a universal role-playing system like GURPS or like the ones I mentioned have an internal mechanism that allows you to evaluate that, to be able to do your own calculations, be able to say, okay, well, if the characters move into the Renaissance era, they can expect to be using handguns, and handguns have this kind of effect in the game. They may completely outclass and remove the necessity for having crossbows and bows, and that's to be expected, and it's not power creep. Power creep, as I said, is when a new supplement comes out, and the only reason to buy the new supplement is because the stuff in it is just better. And that usually occurs in systems that don't have any kind of universal base system. It's whatever the designers come up with for that particular thing, that they don't have some balancing issue, cost, or offsets in utility. You don't tend to see that a lot in video games, I find, because typically a video game is encapsulated and you don't have one game that is any game that's a sequel to the next. The rule sets are going to be the same, or the rule sets are internal to that game, so you don't typically see that in video games. It's more that you'll see that in role-playing games. And I think primarily the difference for video games is that you'll see it happen because of new technologies are available. They're able to do new things, like the force powers, for instance, that you could see in The Force Unleashed is a lot better than in the Jedi Knight one, and that's probably because the technology existed. Also probably a little bit more of the philosophy that in Jedi Knight, that they were trying to show what it was really like, whereas I think The Force Unleashed is a little bit more of a fantasy of what would the ultimate in extreme badassery when it comes to the Force look like. I think it's a little bit out of place in the Star Wars universe, but that's my own take on it. Anyway, avoid power creep in your own campaigns, except if you were avoid companies that produce power creep as one of their selling models. I think that there are more honest ways to produce supplements. It usually means that you as a game master don't have a strong ability to be able to use the rules internally to produce your own content. Anyway, my own thoughts. More to come.